Murder in the first degree, premeditated homicide, is the most serious charge tried in a criminal court. We have heard a long and complex case, ladies and gentlemen. And now it is your duty to sit down to try and separate the facts from the fantasy. One man is dead, life of another is at stake. If there is a reasonable doubt in your mind as to the guilt of the accused, then you must declare him not guilty. If, however, there is no reasonable doubt, he must be found guilty. Whichever way you decide, the verdict must be unanimous. I urge you to deliberate honestly and thoughtfully. You are faced with a grave responsibility. Thank you all.
Well, the S.
You know something? It's hot today. You'd think that at least air conditioned the place? I almost dropped dead in court.
I never knew they locked the door.
Sure, they locked the door. What do you think?
I don't know. It just never occurred to me.
6 days. They should have finished it in 2. Talk, talk, talk. Did you ever hear so much talk about? Nothing.
Well, I guess they're entitled.
Everybody gets a fair trial. That's the system. Well, I suppose you can't say anything against it.
You heard the story about that knife? Have you ever heard a phonier story?
Well, look, you gotta expect that. You know what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah, I suppose. What's the matter? You got a cold?
Ah, nothing. Aluru. This hot weather colds could kill you.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to work.
Right, this better be fast. I've got tickets to the 7-year itch tonight. I must be the only guy in the world who hasn't seen it yet. Okay, Your Honor, start the show.
Well, it's tough to figure, isn't it? A kid kills his father. Just like that. Bing! Well, it's the element. They let the kids run wild. Maybe it serves them right.
Alright, now you ladies and gentlemen can handle this any way you want to. I mean, I'm not going to make any rules. If you want to vote first, that's one way.
Let's vote now. Who knows? Maybe we all can go home.
Well, let's see who's where.
Right, let's vote now. Anybody who doesn't want to vote? Okay, all those voting guilty, raise your hands. 9, 10, 11. That's 11 for guilty. Okay, not guilty. 1, right. That's 11 to 1 guilty. Now we know where we are. Somebody's in the left field. You think he's not guilty?
I don't know.
I never saw a guiltier man in my life. You sat right there in the court and heard the same thing I did. The man's a dangerous killer. You could see it.
He's 19 years old.
That's old enough. He knifed his own father 4 inches into his chest. A little 19-year-old kid. They proved it a dozen different ways. Do you want me to list them?
No.
Do you believe his story?
I don't know whether I believe it or not. Maybe I don't.
So what do you vote not guilty for?
There were 11 votes for guilty. It's not so easy for me to raise my hand and send a boy off to jail without talking about it first.
Who says it's easy for me?
No one.
What? Just because I voted fast? I think the guy is guilty? You couldn't change my mind if you talked for 100 years.
I don't want to change your mind. I just want to talk about it. Look, this boy's been kicked around his whole life. Living in a slum, his mother died when he was 9. That's not a very good head start. He's tough, an angry kid. Why do you think slum kids get that way? Because we hit them on their head once a day, every day. I think we owe him a few words.
But we don't owe him a thing. He got a fair trial, didn't he? You know what a trial costs. You're lucky he's got it. Look, we're all grown-ups here. You're not going to tell us we're supposed to believe him, knowing what he is. I've lived among them all my life. Trust me, you can't believe a word they say. A word.
I don't know that. Since when is dishonesty a group characteristic? You have no monopoly on the truth.
Alright, it's not a Sunday. We don't need a sermon.
What this lady says is very dangerous.
I don't see any need for arguing like this. I think we ought to behave with decorum.
Right.
If we're going to discuss this case, let's discuss the facts.
I think that's a good point. We have a job to do. Let's work on it.
Okay, let's start it off.
Right. I guess you go first.
Oh well, I just think he's guilty. I thought it was obvious. I mean, nobody proved otherwise.
Nobody has to prove otherwise. The burden of the proof is upon the prosecution. The defendant doesn't even have to open his mouth. That's in the Constitution, the 5th Amendment. You've heard of it?
Well, sure, I've heard of it. I know what it is. What I meant. Anyway, I just think he was guilty.
Okay, let's get to the facts. Number 1. Let's take the old man who lived on the 2nd floor right underneath the apartment where the murder took place. At 10 minutes after 12 on the night of the killing, he said he heard loud noises from the upstairs apartment. He said it sounded like a fight. Then he heard the kid say to his father, "I'm gonna kill you." A second later, he heard a body falling. He ran to the door of his apartment, looked out, and saw the kid running out of his house. He then called the police. They found the father with a knife in his chest.
And the coroner fixed the time of death at around midnight.
Right. Now what else do you want?
The boy's entire story is flimsy. He claimed he was at the movies. Now, that's a little ridiculous, isn't it? He couldn't even remember what pictures he saw.
That's right. Did you hear that? You're absolutely right.
Look, what about the woman across the street? If her testimony don't prove it, then nothing does.
That's right. She saw the killing, didn't she?
Let's go in order.
There's a woman who's laying in bed and can't sleep. It's hot, you know. Ugh. Anyways, the woman looks out of the window across the street and sees the kid stick the knife into his father. She's known the kid all his life. His window is right opposite hers across the L track. And she swore she saw him do it.
Through the windows of a passing elevated train.
Yes! And they proved it in the court that you can see through the windows of a passing L train at night and see what's happening on the other side. They proved it.
How come you believed her? She's one of them too, right?
Pretty smart, aren't you?
Now, take it easy.
Why are you letting him upset you? Relax.
Ma'am, it's your turn.
I'll pass it.
That's your privilege. How about you?
I started to be convinced, with the testimony of those people across the hall.
Didn't they say about that argument that happened between the father and the boy that night at 7 o'clock? I mean,
I can be wrong.
I think it was 8 o'clock, not 7. That's right, 8 o'clock. The man heard the father hit the boy twice, and then the boy walked out of the house angrily. But what does that prove?
Well, it doesn't exactly prove anything. It's just part of the picture. I never said that it proved anything.
Anything else?
No.
Alright. How about you?
I don't know. Most of it's been said already. We can sit here and talk about it all day. But I think we're wasting our time. Look at the kid's record. At 15, he was in reform school. He stole a car. He was arrested for mugging. He was picked up for knife fighting. He even stabbed somebody in the arm. This is a very fine boy.
Ever since the boy was 5 years old, his father beat him up regularly. He used his fists.
So would I. A kid like that.
You're right. It's the kids. The way they are, they don't listen. I've got a kid. When he was 8 years old, he ran away from a fight. I saw him. I was so ashamed. I told him right out, I'm gonna make a man out of you, or I'm gonna bust you up into little pieces. Trying. When he was 15, he hit me in the face. He's big, I haven't seen him in 3 years. Rotten kid. You work your heart out. Okay, let's get on with it.
We're missing the point here. This boy, let's say he's a product of a filthy neighborhood and a broken home. We can't help that. We're not here to go into the reasons why slums are breeding grounds for criminals. They are, I know it, so do you. Children who come out of slum backgrounds are potential menaces to society.
You said it there. I don't want any part of them. Believe me.
I've lived in a slum all my life.
Oh, now wait a second.
I used to play in the backyard that was filled with garbage. Maybe it still smells on me.
Now let's be reasonable. There's nothing personal.
There is something personal.
Come on now. She didn't mean you. Let's not be so sensitive.
I can understand this sensitivity.
Now let's stop the bickering. We're wasting time. It's your turn.
Alright. I had a peculiar feeling about this trial. Somehow I felt that the defense counsel never really conducted a thorough cross-examination. I mean, the lawyer was appointed by the court to defend the boy. He hardly seemed interested. Too many questions were left unasked.
What about the ones that were asked? For instance, let's talk about that cute little switch knife that the kid admitted buying.
Alright, let's talk about it. Let's get it in here and look at it. I'd like to see it again.
The jury decides to take another look at the murder weapon. A juror asks the guard to bring it in.
We all know what it looks like. Why do we have to see it again? What do you say?
The lady has a right to see exhibits and evidence.
Okay with me?
This knife is a pretty strong piece of evidence. Don't you agree?
I do.
The boy admits going out of his house at 8 o'clock after being slapped by his father.
Or punched.
Or punched. He went to his neighborhood store and bought a switch knife. The storekeeper was arrested the following day when he admitted selling it to the boy. It's a very unusual knife. The storekeeper identified it and said it was the only one of its kind he had in stock. Now, why did the boy get it? As a present for a friend of his? Am I right so far?
Right.
You bet she's right. She knows what she's talking about.
Next, the boy claims that on his way home, the knife must have fallen out a hole in his coat pocket. Now, there's a story for you. We know what actually happened. The boy took the knife home and a few hours later stabbed his father with it and even remembered to wipe off the fingerprints. Everyone connected with the case identified this knife.
Guilty. Not guilty.
How do you like that? Who was it? We have a right to know.
Excuse me. This was a secret ballot. I think we all agreed on this point, no? If the gentleman wanted to remain a secret, so...
do you mean? There are no secrets in here. I know who it was. You come here and you vote guilty, and then the sleek preacher starts telling up stories about a poor little kid who couldn't help becoming a murderer. So, you change your vote. If that isn't the most sickening...
Now hold it.
Hold it? We're trying to put a guilty man into the place where he belongs. And all of a sudden, we're paying attention to fairy tales.
Now just a minute.
Please, I would like to say something. I had always thought that a man was entitled to have unpopular opinions in this country. This is the reason why I came here. I wanted the right to disagree. In my own country? Oh, I'm ashamed to say that.
Now what do we have to listen to now? The whole history of your country?
Yeah, let's stick to the subject. I want to ask you, what made you change your vote?
There's nothing for him to tell you. He didn't change his vote. I did. Maybe you'd like to know why.
No, we wouldn't like to know why.
The man wants to talk.
This lady chose to stand alone against us. And that's her right. It takes a great deal of courage to stand alone, even if you believe in something very strongly. She left the wording up to us and gambled for support. And I gave it to her. I want to hear more now. The vote is 10-2.
That's fine. If the speech is over, let's go on.
Look, Buddy, I was a little excited. Well, you know how it is. I didn't mean to get nasty. Nothing personal.
Look, supposing you answer me this. If the kid didn't kill him, who did?
As far as I know, we are supposed to decide whether the boy on trial is guilty. We are not concerned with anyone else's motives.
Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. This is an important thing to remember.
Everyone's a lawyer. Supposing you explain what your reasonable doubts are.
This is not easy. So far, it's a feeling I have. A feeling. Perhaps you don't understand.
A feeling? What are we gonna do? Spend the night talking about feelings? What about the facts?
You said a mouthful. Look, the old man heard the kid yell, "I'm gonna kill you." A second later, he heard the father's body falling and he saw the kid run out of the house 15 seconds after that.
That's right. And let's not forget about the woman across the street. She looked into the open window and saw the boy stab his father. She saw it. Now, if that's not enough for you,
It's not enough for me.
How do you like him? It's like talking to a dead phone.
The woman saw the killing through the windows of a moving train. The train had 5 cars, and she saw it through the windows of the last 2. And yet, she remembers the
An L train passes a given point in 10 seconds. That given point is the window of the room in which the killing took place. It's almost as if you can reach out of the room and touch the tracks, right? Now let me ask all of you a question. Has any one of you lived near the tracks before? Well, I have. And let me tell you, when the train goes by and your window is open, the noise is almost unbearable. You can't even hear yourself think.
Okay, you can't hear yourself thinking. When you get to the point,
The old man heard the boy say, "I'm going to kill you." And 1 second later, he heard the body fall. 1 second. That's the testimony, right?
Right.
The woman across the street looked through the windows of the last 2 cars of the L and saw the body fall, right? The last 2 cars.
What are you getting at here?
An L takes 10 seconds to pass a given point, or 2 seconds per car. If the L had been going by the man's window for at least 6 seconds or maybe more before the body fell, that is according to the woman. Now the man would have had to hear the boy say, "I'm going to kill you," while the front of the L was roaring past his nose. He could not have heard it.
What do you mean? Sure, he could have heard it.
Could he?
He said the boy yelled it out. That's enough for me.
I don't think he could have heard it.
Maybe he didn't hear it. I mean, with the L noise.
What are you people talking about? Are you calling the old man a liar?
Well, it stands to reason.
You're crazy. Why would he lie? What's he got to gain?
Attention. Maybe.
You keep coming up with these bright sayings. Why don't you send one into the newspaper? They paid $2.
Why do you think he might have lied? You have a right to be heard.
It's just that I looked at him for a very long time. He was a very old man.
The vote is 9-3 in favor of guilty.
Well, if that isn't the end, what are you basing it on? Stories this guy made up? He ought to write for a detective magazine, he'd make a fortune. Listen, the kid had a lawyer, didn't he? Why didn't his lawyer bring up all these points?
Lawyers can't think of everything.
You're pulling stories out of thin air, and now we're supposed to believe that the old man didn't get out of bed, run to the door, and see the kid running downstairs 15 seconds after the killing. He's only saying it to be important?
Did the old man say he ran to the door?
Ran? Walked? What's the difference? He got there.
I don't remember what he said, but I don't see how he could run.
He said he went from his bedroom to the front door. That's enough, isn't it?
Where was his bedroom again?
Down the hall somewhere. I thought you remembered everything. Don't you remember that?
I'd like to take a look at the diagram of the apartment.
Why don't we just run the whole trial over again? Just can get everything straight.
The plans of the apartment are called for.
Alright, what's this for? How come you're the one in the entire room who wants to see exhibits all the time?
I want to see this one too.
And I want to stop wasting time.
If we're going to start wading through all that nonsense about where the body was found,
We are not. We are going to find out how a man who has had 2 strokes in the past 3 years and walks with a pair of canes could get to his front door in 15 seconds.
He said 20 seconds.
He said 15.
How does he know how long 15 seconds is? You can't judge that kind of a thing.
He said 15. He was very positive about it.
He's an old man. You saw him. Half of the time he was confused. How could he be positive about anything?
The plan is displayed to the jurors and some of them review it carefully.
Do me a favor. Wake me up when this is all over. Oh.
Alright, this is the apartment in which the killing took place. The old man's apartment was directly beneath it and exactly the same. Here are the tracks: the bedroom, another bedroom, living room, bathroom, kitchen. And this is the hall. Here's the front door to the apartment. And here are the steps. He says he got up, went down into the hall, down to the front door, opened it and looked it just in time to see the boy racing down the stairs. Am I right?
Now that's the story.
15 seconds after he heard the body fall?
Correct. His bed was at the window. It's 12 feet from his bed to the bedroom door. The length of the hall is 43 feet 6 inches. He had to get up out of his bed, get his canes, walk 12 feet, open the bedroom door, and then he had to walk 43 feet and open the front door, all in 15 seconds. Do you think this is possible?
You know it's possible.
You know, he can only walk very slowly. They even had to help him to the witness chair.
You make it sound like a long walk. It's not.
For an old man who uses 2 canes, it's a very long walk.
He's not guilty.
he is guilty. I say he is.
He is not
guilty.
He is guilty.
It's
He
confirmed.
is not guilty.
He is totally
guilty. He is not guilty.
The jurors argue heatedly about the innocence or guilt of the accused. Tempers are frayed and bitter words exchanged.
I don't see why we have to behave like children here.
Not the way. We have a responsibility. See, this is the most remarkable thing about democracy, that we... what's that? Notified. That we are notified by mail to come down here and decide upon the guilt or innocence of a man we've not known before. We have nothing to gain or lose by our verdict. This is the reason why we are strong. Let us not make this a personal issue.
Well, we are still nowhere. Who's got an idea?
I think we should try another vote.
Anybody who doesn't want to vote?
Alright, let's do it.
I want an open ballot. Let's call out our votes. I want to see who stands where.
That sounds fair enough. Supposing we go once around the table. I guess you go first.
Not guilty.
Ma'am, it's your turn.
Guilty?
Guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Guilty. In fact, guilty as hell.
Not guilty.
Guilty.
6 to 6.
I'll tell you something. The crime is being committed. Right in this room.
The vote is 6-6. I want to go to the court and declare a hung jury. There's no point in further discussion.
I go for that too. Let's take it to the judge and let the kid have his chances with 12 other guys.
You mean you still don't think there's a room for a reasonable doubt?
No, I don't.
I beg your pardon. Maybe you don't understand the term reasonable doubt.
What do you mean I don't understand it? Who do you think you are? Talking to me like that? Look at this guy. He comes here and before he can even take a breath, he's telling us how to run the show. The arrogance of him.
Wait a second. Nobody around here asking where you came from.
I was born right here.
Maybe it wouldn't hurt us to take a few tips from people who come running here. Maybe they learn something we don't know. We are not so perfect. Please, I'm used to this. It's alright. Thank you. It's not alright.
Okay. I apologize. Is that what you want?
That's what I want.
Alright, let's stop the arguing. Who's got something constructive to say?
Well, something's been bothering me a little. The whole business about the stab wound, and how it was made. The downward angle to it.
Don't tell me we're gonna start that. They went over and over it in the court.
I know they did, but I didn't go along with it. The boy is 5 feet 8 inches tall, but his father was 6'2". That's a difference of 6 inches. It's a very awkward thing to stab down into the chest of someone who's half a foot taller than you are.
Look, you're not going to be satisfied until you see it again. Okay, I'll give you a demonstration. Somebody, please get up.
I'll do that.
Okay, now watch this. I don't want to do this again. I'll be about 6 inches shorter.
That's more than 6 inches.
That's right.
Look out!
Now just calm down. Nobody's hurt, are they?
No, nobody's hurt.
Alright, that's your angle.
But anyone who's ever used a switch knife would have never stabbed downward. You don't use a switch knife that way. You use it underhanded.
Then he couldn't have made the kind of wound which killed his father.
No, he couldn't have. Not if he'd ever had any experience with switch knives.
I don't believe it.
Neither do I. You're giving us a lot of mumbo jumbo.
What do you think?
Well, I don't know.
What about you?
Listen, I'll tell you something. I'm a little sick of this whole thing already. We're getting nowhere fast. So let's break it down. I'm changing my vote to not guilty.
You're what?
You've heard me. I've had enough.
What do you mean you've had enough? That's no answer.
I think perhaps you're right. That is no answer. What kind of a man are you? You sit down here and vote guilty with everyone else just because there are some theatre tickets burning a hole in your pocket. Now you change your vote for the same reason. I do not think you have the right to play like that with a man's life. This is an ugly and terrible thing to do.
No. Wait a minute. You can't talk like that to me.
I can talk like that with you. If you want to vote not guilty, then do it because you believe the man is not guilty. If you want to vote guilty, then do it otherwise. Or perhaps you don't have the guts to say what is right.
Now listen.
Is it guilty or not guilty?
I told you. Not guilty.
Why?
I don't have to.
You have to say why.
I don't think he's guilty.
I want another vote.
There's another vote called for. I guess the quickest way is a show of hands. Anyone object? Alright. All those voting not guilty, raise your hands. Nine. All those voting guilty? The vote is 9-3 in favor of not guilty.
I don't understand you people. How can you believe that this kid is innocent? Look, you know how these people lie. I don't have to tell you. And let me tell you, they don't need a big reason to kill someone either. And bang! Then someone is lying in the gutters. Violent. Look, I've known a few who were quite decent, but most of them, they have no feelings. They can do anything. Listen to me. I'm trying to tell you something.
I've had enough. If you open your mouth again, I'm going to split your skull.
I'm only trying to tell you.
I still believe the boy is guilty of murder. To me, the most damning evidence is that of the woman across the street, who claims she actually saw the murder being committed. Was my feeling.
What time is it?
10 minutes of 6.
It's late. Do you think they'll let us go and finish this in the morning? I've got a kid with mumps.
Not a chance. Pardon me? Can't you see the clock without your glasses?
Not from a distance. Why?
Oh, I don't know. Look, this may be a dumb thought, but what do you do when you wake up at night and want to know the time?
What do you mean? I put on my glasses and look at the clock.
You don't wear them to bed.
Of course not. No one wears eyeglasses to bed.
What's all this for now?
Well, I think that the woman who testified that she
saw the killing wears glasses.
So does my grandmother. So what?
Your grandmother isn't a murder witness.
Look, stop me if I'm wrong. That woman wouldn't wear her glasses when she go to bed.
Wait a minute. Did she wear glasses at all? I don't remember.
Of course she did. The woman wore bifocals. I remember this very clearly. They looked quite strong.
That's right, bifocals. She never took them off.
She did wear glasses. Funny, I never thought of it.
Listen, she wasn't wearing them in bed. That's for sure. She testified that in the midst of her tossing and turning, she casually looked out the window. The murder was taking place as she looked out, and the lights went out a split second later. She could not have had the time to put on her glasses. Now, maybe she honestly thought that she saw the boy kill his own father, but I say she only saw the blur.
How do you know what she saw? Maybe she's farsighted?
Does anyone think there still is not a reasonable doubt?
I think he's guilty.
Does anyone else?
No, I'm convinced.
You're alone.
I don't care whether I'm alone or not. I have a right.
You have a right.
Well, I told you the kid is guilty. What else do you want?
Your arguments.
I gave you my arguments.
We are not convinced. We are waiting to hear them again. We have time. We are waiting.
Well, you're not going to intimidate me. I am entitled to my opinion. It's gonna be a hung jury. That's it.
There's nothing we can do about that, except hope that some night, maybe in a few months, you'll get some sleep.
You're all alone.
It takes a great deal of courage to stand alone.
Ultimately, 11 jurors vote not guilty. One juror resists till the very end, but finally concedes.
All right.
The accused is set free.